Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Morning, Rob.
Yes, good morning. So I think the next two masterminds are going to be some of the better ones you've been on. Not to upsell, but it'll be good. But obviously, we've got a slow arriving crowd today. Mr. Wilson, how are you?
Good, 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 good. Happy to have a little bit of warmth back.
All the New Jersey folks, great seeing you. Florida, I'll be seeing you tonight. Hopefully, I'll see you at our holiday party. Um, Arizona in 2 weeks. Exciting times. Mr. Steve, how are you?
Good to see you, Rob. How you doing,
Um,
buddy?
I'm doing great. And Michelle Steigerwald, good to see you. That was good news about your listing.
It's nice to see you too, as always. Thank you. We're not out of the woods yet, but it's a good start.
When you have the right person in the right spot, it all comes together. So if it can be done, it will be done. So today's topic, I think I know why a lot of people aren't showing up, Jason, because it's business is math. People are getting up on a Friday morning, go, math? No way. I don't want to do math. But
Actually, when I taught that business planning thing about 3 weeks ago, all it was math.
I mean,
But we
that's
made the
great.
math simple. You know what? Honestly, what I love about this topic is your math is going to sound scary going into it, but guess what? When you break it down, what do I need to do today? It makes it attainable.
Yeah. Jason, to stack on top of that, I think when you look at this business as math, um, it's not a mystery what you're going to make next year, right? It's just a matter of what you're going to do. And for somebody like myself, like I'm not even gonna say I'm not really, I am not worried about what the market does. I'm worried about what we do,
Sure.
right? Because you could be in a good market and have a bad discipline, bad skills, you're going to struggle. You could be in a transitioning market or a stable market. If you have, good habits and good skills, it doesn't matter, right? So while I'm waiting for more people to come in before I get into the meat of the subject, um, you know, bad markets or challenging markets require discipline and improving skills to get better. Okay. Um, the old story about like somebody having a stable job, there's no such thing as a stable income. None, because you know what happens to people when they're in corporate America, Jason? They make too much money, they get noticed, right?
Yeah.
And then they get replaced by three people to do the job for a third less. That's what bean counters do. So in our business, there's nobody that can control your income. Okay, nobody except you, right? And every year, we should be stacking on our skills and our discipline so that we can do better, and ideally do better in less time, right? Because time is another commodity that we have. So that's my core value, my belief. Now I'm going to kind of talk a little bit about today's topic. And I'm going to have a very interesting announcement if you stay towards the end. Um, who measures regularly um, certain metrics of a business and is brave enough to volunteer?
I mean, I'll volunteer, but I don't know about brave.
Okay. Well, your peers would say you're brave. So what do you measure, Jason, in your business?
Um, I mean, overall, like you were talking about, when we do business planning, we sit down and break down if we want to make this amount of money, here's the things we need to do, and we come up with a core number. And in the class, there were people that had 12,000 calls they had to make in a year. When you dialed that down, it might have been 11 in a day, which is attainable. In a 5-day work week, that's attainable. And even if it stretches, we do that at the beginning, but I measure as my team, I get a report of every sale, every commission, and I break it down based on what their activities were. And then I correlate it to, I can look on our CRM and go, okay, how many calls did you make? What did your follow up? Who's in your pipeline? Does it make sense, or are you just making it up? Like, it's pretty obvious if you're consistent all the way through and you see the same general call basis, what we can do. So I actually pull reports. I look at exactly what we're doing, where our commissions are. Are we on track? Are we ahead or behind? And what do we need to do in the next quarter to stay on track? If we had a slow quarter, do we need to increase that number? Do we need to add to it?
Okay. Um, do you calculate your hourly your hourly return on different activities or just overall?
I do it in the beginning. I do it in the beginning so that they understand that when most agents will find if you do that, you're going to be making somewhere between 150 and $300 an hour. So what most of us do on a normal 40-hour work week. Hopefully we don't assume 24 hours in a day. I don't do it when I do quarterly stuff because I think at that point it's irrelevant. I think it's good to know in the back of your mind if you're making $200,000 a year, you're making roughly 170, dollars an hour to do something. Is this leading to the next sale? I do it as a coaching tool, but I don't do it in a quarterly basis. I do it in business planning.
And not maybe your hours worked are different, but I mean, 200,000 is basically $100 an hour for 50 weeks,
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm just making those numbers up. I know what my personal ones are.
right? So part of the reason why I like to have the discussion about the hourly value of your time is so that you don't spend time doing things that are below your hourly rate. And I remember I learned this when I was very young. My neighbor, when I was growing up, was a salesman, pretty successful salesman. And the one thing that he did, he's like, "Hey, kid, I don't want this item I bought." I'm like, "Well, why don't you return it?" He's like, "Well, you know, my time is worth more than going to return an item." And I was like, at the age of like 6 or 7, I was like, that's a very interesting, philosophy, right? And I think we do things that, if we thought about what our hourly rate was, we might not be doing, right? So if you could, what would it cost to pay somebody to meet a home inspector or an appraiser? And I know I'm going to get some blowback on this, but what would it cost?
If you were to say that one more time because you broke up for me.
So what would it cost, Jason, if you wanted to hire somebody in your office or your market to sit 2 to 3 hours for a home inspection?
Oh,
100.
I mean, it probably cost me $50.
$50. Um, and do you sit
Maybe
your own
100.
do you sit your own home inspections or no?
No. In fact, actually, kind of the theory behind it here is that we want our clients, and again, a lot of firms are this way. We want our clients to know that that home inspector is working for them, not us. So that way we can't influence it. When we get the report, then we start asking the questions of the home inspector. So I would say the majority of agents don't around here.
Okay. Um, and what other things could you farm out?
Social media marketing posts.
Mm.
No. Here, if you're posting on a Friday, every once in a while we'll post something, and yeah, I know Wilson's gonna look at me and go, "Okay, cool." Here's the thing: if I'm gonna post, hey, what are the five, main focuses you need to pay attention to in order to get ready to buy a house? Your finances, your pre-approval, your credit score, blah. I can make that into a post on Canva. We can talk about it. I can pay somebody to get it online. I don't need to sit there and click every button. The 20 minutes I'm spending to do that is going to cost me $116 for the 15 minutes to do it. Whereas I can pay my assistant or pay someone else $5 to do that in 15 minutes.
Excellent use of leverage. Who's got an
You agree
accounting
now, Wilson?
Yeah, no idea. There's always that personal touch, and that's where I really struggled giving up that control because I felt like it becomes a 1-800, post. Let's get the recipe cards out. Let's get the BS that every other realtor is doing. So I always like this for social media. I like it to be me. But what I've realized is I've started to like Fiverr. You can go on there and actually hire somebody for, I think it was like $25 and a week, and I send them all my posts for a week. So Sunday night I can sit there
Same
and
thing.
they will put them out for $25 a week.
Yeah. I see
I,
everything
I
that
still
goes
get
out.
it. They just do all the clicking.
Yeah, I tell my assistant what we want to post this week and she'll go through it. She prepares it, and if we want to make a change, it's 5 minutes of my time that she
Yeah.
spent an hour doing. Yeah,
Yeah. Love that.
that's my example.
It stays personal. It's still you.
Yes. Sorry. Go ahead, Rob.
Good. So in terms of like looking at numbers, I'm going to put out a couple of things that I think we should know. And I was asking, is there anyone that has a little bit of an accounting background? Anybody care to admit? Jason again.
I mean, my master's, I had a lot of accounting in it, so that's about the background I have. I hate it though.
So what's more important, gross margin or net margin?
I mean, it would be net, but it depends on why you're asking.
Okay, well, for some of the team leaders, right, sometimes they strive to get like, I want to get to $100 million in volume, but sometimes you might be better off if you don't have the right model to do 30 million and have a higher net. Does that make sense?
And as a point to that is if I'm looking at my team's goals as making diamond this year, my gross margin matters more. If I want to take home 250,000, my net matters more. So there's two different, goal setting there. That's why I said that.
Right. So, but I mean, I think having a consciousness about it, Jason, is really important so that you can make that determination, right? You can make the sacrifice if that's something that you want to do, right? So we talk about gross margin, net margin. Net margin's after all your expenses, team. Okay. If you're doing something like a Zillow and you're paying them a flex fee or you're paying referral fees, that all affects your net margin because you have an additional cost. We talked about hourly rate. Is anybody geo farming in a particular area, like looking to dominate a market? Do you know what the TAM is? TAM?
Yes, but no. I forget what it stands for.
Total available market, right?
Oh,
So
okay.
when you're farming an area, you're going to take that geography. You might go into your MLS and say, how many sales were in this market, right? And then based upon the activities you're going to do, you're going to determine, hey, Jason and my team, we want to have 15% market share, right? That's the way I would go about determining how am I going to work a particular farm area. Market share, so we just talked about both of those in that same conversation. Market share, you need to define what your market is, right? A company like Remax can look at a national or a statewide or countywide or region-wide market share, but for all of us on this Zoom meeting here, the only thing that matters is your market share, right? Like, what are you looking to achieve and attain? Numbers wise, conversion rates. Okay, when I say conversion rates, what does that mean to anybody here? Gary Greenacre, what's a conversion rate to you?
Conversion rate for me would be how many times I go out on an appointment and get the listing.
Okay. Another conversion rate item might be how many calls does it take to get that listing appointment, right?
Correct. Yep.
Another conversion rate can be, what percentage of your listings wind up with solds, right? I mean, sadly enough, that there are listings that don't sell now.
How many online lead calls you need to take in order to get a contract?
Yeah. Or even how many calls, Jason, to get an appointment?
Yeah.
How many appointments to get a transaction? Then how many transactions to get a closing? Gary, what would you say the fallout rate is in our operation in Arizona as a percentage?
Oh boy. I mean, it used to be 25%. I think right now it's probably getting closer to 40. I mean, we're seeing a lot of cancellations, a lot of buyers canceling.
Now, is that broadly in Arizona or is that for Excalibur?
I think it's Arizona from the other broker calls and stuff that I've been on, masterminds that I've been on and stuff. Seen a lot of cancellation rates.
So for our leadership team, whether you're a team leader, maybe you're even leading a team of one, that means yourself. Let's focus on how to improve our closing rate, right, and reduce the fall through. Because what happens is, and sadly enough, you can do all the work, and the day before closing, if it doesn't close, what's your payday look like? In yeah, zero,
Zero, exactly. Yep.
right? So I was meeting with a candidate who Abe Himmelstein, who's probably one of the most tenacious recruiters and follow-up people I know. He's our recruiter in Florida. I landed on Monday, or I landed on Wednesday, and I met a gentleman at a deli, and I was probing around, like, well, what can help you with your business, right? And there were a couple of things. One of them was, if you're here in Southeast Florida, a lot of our agents, we go to the bar and we talk about, the sellers didn't get the memo, that they're pricing unrealistically, and it becomes a challenge. And, this gentleman said, but you know what, Rob, I'm persistent. I set the expectation that if their unrealistic price doesn't work, that, we have to make adjustments to close. And after I had this pricing strategy conversation, I said, well, what would you like how do you want to grow your business? He's like, I need more listings. And I had an epiphany, and I said, look, if you were to do a better job and deliver a better experience, I can envision a seller moving out of that $1.1 million neighborhood that you want to grow in, literally walking you over to three neighbors and saying, hey, Ivy, hey, Gary, hey, Jason, when you're ready to sell, you need to call Andy because he's the best agent. He sold my house in 9 days when all other homes are taking, months. Now, if you let that sink in, this individual's objective was to sell that house for $1.1 million and make a $30,000+ commission. My objective is to make the commission, deliver a better experience, and get referrals. Do you see the difference?
Mm-hmm.
If you wanted to get more business in that area, what's a better way to get more? You can take money and put it into mailings, which is not a horrible idea, but you can focus on delivering a better experience. And if you deliver that experience, has anybody ever had a client, introduce you to two neighbors after the sale and say, hey, Rick and Judy are going to sell, and Pam and Mark are going to be selling because both their kids are graduating next year? If you've had a seller do that and you're on camera, just raise your hand. Look at most of the people have had that. Now, isn't that the best experience that you can have? And I'm going to go to Rebecca McDowell. Like, isn't that the best? When somebody goes and says, I want to refer you to my two neighbors.
It is. And actually, when I got the referral and I addressed the needs and took care of the referrals, I was thinking, what closing gift am I going to buy these people? And the bottle of wine, what am I going to do? And they sent me a closing gift. I was shocked. Because nobody does that.
Okay. Well, actually, you stole.
Yeah, but
Rebecca, you stole my thunder, young lady. But I'm thinking that if you deliver a different level of service and you have a different mindset, that we're getting the closing gifts. We're not giving them, because our gift is the level of service that we provided. And the mission, Rebecca, the mission is not to get that $33,000 commission check. The mission is to have a raving fan that's going to go out of their way to refer you. And I want to make a distinction when we talk about this for a second. Okay. When you deliver that level of service, okay, they're not only, as a matter of fact, they may not even be referring you for you. They may be referring you because they value their two friends and they want them to get the best experience, right?
Yeah,
So
very
we
true.
think it's like, okay, they love what I did. They want to help me out, right? But what they're really doing, Rebecca, is they're acknowledging the level of service that you did and giving you to two people to help them out, right? What's the
Yes.
motivation when you do a great job and somebody refers you? Is the motivation because they like you and they want to help you, or is the motivation that they have two friends that they want to make sure they get the best possible experience?
The experience is crucial in our business.
Right, but we think always about they want to refer me because I did a good job. I look at it and say, they have two dear friends that they want to make sure they get that same experience that I had.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah.
Um, but anyway, you want to grow your business, you can spend more money in marketing, or maybe you could just deliver, instead of delivering a 5 out of a 5, deliver a 7 out of a 5, right?
Yeah,
Figure out how you can have more separation between what we do and what the competition does.
very
Because
true.
that's where the real exponential growth comes from, right? Being
Yes.
different from the competition. Um, you know, we had one mastermind where I spent a lot of emphasis on, you want to have a better outcome, ask better questions, right? And with this candidate that Abe introduced me to, I walked him through exactly how I would have had the conversation with the quote unquote unreasonable seller, right? And if I say unreasonable seller, do I even need to put the word unreasonable? Because aren't most sellers by definition somewhat unreasonable without being educated? What do you think, Dan Gagnon? What do you think? Are most sellers unreasonable by default?
Knew you'd call on.
You see, you're brave. You put the camera on, but
Yeah, yeah. For the most part, yes. In fact, I just was contacted by a neighbor of mine who's looking to sell his home. He's got a number in mind. It's the biggest lot in the community, and the buyers really aren't flinching at the price, even though it's probably well above the appraised value. But in that instance, he may get lucky. So if things don't work out, I don't think he's going to get his number based on what the market is doing now. So we'll see.
yeah. Here's something that I don't think you and your peers on the Zoom Hollywood Squares, look left, right, up, and down. You can invite me out to your listing appointments, and please only do one that is looking to list and has a tendency to be unreasonable. The more unreasonable, the better. Okay, because it's only 2% that are unconvertible. Okay, so when we struggle with the conversion, we struggle with the rationale of the seller. Okay, it's real easy to say, boy, that person's unrealistic. They're crazy. They want last year's price, or they can't be objective. Well, the real thing that we should be discussing is, how can we have a better approach? How can we do a better conversation? What better questions can we ask? Right? Because if you get the best possible outcome, don't we both win together? It's hard for a seller to win or us to win without the other, our counterpart to win, right? Or is it possible for us to win and the seller to lose when we take a listing? It's unlikely, right?
I mean, we only win when it sells, right?
Yeah. And if we take a different approach, Dan, and we say, um, I want to get a 7 out of a 5, a rating of 1 to 5, I want a 7. Okay, what would you need to do to get a 7? Okay, a 4 might get you the commission check. A 5 might get you a good Zillow review. I want to get a 7. Okay, I want to get a 7 where the homeowner literally walks out their door in 104 degrees in Florida or Arizona, or in 18 degrees in New Jersey in the winter, and they walk you to 2 of their neighbors and say, hey, when it comes time for you to sell, you need to know this person, and here's why. Doesn't that feel great when that happens? It's better than getting it's even better than getting a Remax referral from another agent.
Yeah.
Like getting a referral, not only do you not have to pay a referral fee, but you earned it, right? You earned that right. So why don't we focus on, delivering, 13s and 15s out of 10, 7s out of a scale of 1 to 5. And they're going to want to put a review and refer you, not because they like you, but because other people need to know the level of service and the level of professionalism that you have. All right. Knowing your numbers, business is math. Every listing we go on, we should study and know the days on market inflection points. Okay, because does it surprise anybody that building up days on market adversely affects the sales price in virtually every metric? If it surprises you, raise your hand. Nobody. Do you think that sellers might have this belief? All right, and I'm looking at you, Beth. They come over and they say, you know what, Beth? I'm not going to give my house away. I can wait for the perfect buyer.
Oh my
Do you think
God,
a
I
sell-
hear that.
Do you think a seller can have that?
Sellers say that all the time.
Okay. Now, what do you say? Can I ask you, what do you say in response?
In response, I don't just say, I show comps, I show actual listings that I have pulled. And then I say that the longer a home is on the market, the more a buyer or potential buyer is going to question why it's been on the market. And the first question that's going to come to their mind is what's wrong with it. So statistically, people actually get less for their homes if they don't price it right in the beginning, and because it takes longer to sell.
So I'm going to give you a gift here, Beth, and I hope you don't take it as a critique, but I'm going to suggest that you take whatever you're communicating and you turn it all into questions.
Oh yeah, for sure.
What I mean by that is I'd say, Beth, I know that you're in no hurry and you want to make sure that you get full value for your house. Yeah, but let me just ask you, if we get the launch pricing wrong and it sits on the market for a little bit of time, tell me, if it's on the market for 45 days and the perfect buyer comes along, what do you think they might be talking about when they go home thinking about how to make an offer?
That's a great question. They're gonna respond with, I wonder what's wrong with it. And sometimes I ask the question of, when you are looking online and you see different properties, what do you think when a property's been on the market for 45 or 60 days? And they just right out of their mouths, what's wrong with it?
So Beth,
Yeah.
we launched it at 1.3, and then you said in a month you'll lower it by 100,000 to 1.2. Now, if you saw a house that was on the market for 45 days and just cut the price by 100,000, how would you approach making an offer on that, Beth?
Are you asking me as a real estate agent?
I'm asking you as a client. So
How would I?
when you ask the seller that you're sitting across, hey, if you saw a house in let's say they were moving from Scottsdale to Dallas. You saw a house in Dallas that was on the market for 45 days and recently cut the price by 100,000 to 1.2. As a buyer, how would you approach making an offer?
I would come in low because I think they're desperate because they lowered it by so much money.
right? And what I found when I have this conversation is most people would be like, well, for starters, I'd come in at least another 100 below because they just cut it 100, right?
Yep.
So now if I'm talking to a seller who has that false belief, right, about asking more and having wiggle room to go down, we've just got them to state in their own words that that's a bad strategy, right?
Yep.
And if you don't believe it, you can't sell it. You can't convince somebody. And number one, every time I look at the numbers, okay, it puts a fresh ribbon on my belief that that's the right strategy, right?
Yep.
Because when it's fresh on the market, you know, people are going to put their best offer forward because they don't know how many other people are interested, right? But once it's been on the market for 3 weeks, they're like, hey, Beth, nobody, you know, the house has kind of been shunned by the market, right? And I can prove this to you, okay? And you're all going to shake your head and say, I get it. Now, when you get a hot property, you get a bunch of offers from the onset, right? And your seller's like, ooh, I don't know what I'm going to do. And they take the wrong offer. And then it comes back, right? It could be 5 days later. It could be crickets, right? I mean, you had 5 people that wanted that house. You know, your client took the wrong offer. That person backed out. And now you're going back to everybody else and like, nah, I'm not interested. If you've had that experience, raise your hand, right? Because that happens quite a bit. You're like, what the hell happened? Everybody wanted this house. Now it's crickets, nothing. So that's the psychology of scarcity, right? Because they don't know who else wants that property. I'd measure back to the math. I'd measure return on investment on my lead sources. Okay, what's a good return on investment for a lead source? Anybody have any opinions?
A lead source or a referral source?
Either.
Because when I look at leads, just straight out leads, for example, I have a company that actually I've partnered with. I'm one of their preferred agents, and to have a close rate of over 10% is stellar. To have a referral close rate of 85% or higher is stellar. So, I mean, big difference because leads are not, I mean, they may be qualified or pre-qualified on a mortgage, but that, you know, they're testing things. They just, you know, they're curious. I mean, the fallout on those is pretty high.
So I guess what I'm looking for is if you did advertising, right? If you did a digital advertising or you did geographic mailing, right? And you spent $10,000 on either of those during the period of a year. How much revenue do you want to generate for that investment? I'm just going to ask you, Beth. Like if you spent $10,000, what would be the minimum return that you'd want to see for that?
Well, I'll tell you what, I've never spent $10,000 on advertising, so I'm probably the wrong person to ask. But I would want to see 10 times because you just don't want to break even. I mean,
You want to see 100,000.
I do. Yeah.
How about Katie in Texas? What would you want to see in $10,000 investment?
You're on mute, Katie.
Yeah.
I'm probably the wrong person to ask on that one because I don't make those financial decisions. Ann does. So,
But no, I just want to know what is your gut? You might not make that decision, but if I said, what would you want to see as a return on a $10,000 investment?
20,000. At least more than I paid for, you know.
Here's the challenge, but with not knowing your numbers, and I'm not picking on you. I want to encourage everybody to think a little bit. If you convert it 1 out of 2, right? You need to think like this. If you convert 1 out of 2 of the leads that come in, you probably spend time on the ones that don't convert. then the ones that do convert, you need to know what does it cost you to carry out the transaction from contract to close. I see Ivy's got a lot of wisdom to share here.
Well, I have an agent whose return rate is 20%, and he believes really strongly, and he is a top agent. This guy makes close to $1 million a year selling real estate. So for every 10,000 he puts in, he wants a $200 return, $200,000 return. But he's focused on what he does. He follows through. He doesn't just spend the money. And I think that's where a lot of agents have the problem. They spend the money and they think that that's going to do it for them. You have to follow through, and you have to be intentional about what you're spending your money on, following through, following up with the leads, making sure that every dollar you spent is going to come back to you.
So what that brings to light for me, Ivy, is if you don't know what your options are, you have none, which means that if you have no alternatives to compare it to, basically, you know, you're a one pony show. Okay, so that you're just doing that. And when you measure both financial and time commitments, and you review them regularly, you're going to get a better outcome. It might be painful. You might not want to know it, but you have to know it, right? Because if you're only getting, like, if you're spending $10,000 in a year and you're getting a $20,000 return, that's probably not a very good investment, because you're also stacking on that your time, right? And there may be failed, there may be people you worked with that didn't transact, that take your time. Then even if you are successful, there's a certain amount of time it takes to put something together. If it's a listing, there's hard expenses. If you're working a buyer, there's hard expenses, right? So knowing your numbers is more than critical. It's you know, to grow, you need to understand how the business works. Okay, so I appreciate that insight, and you know, client acquisition costs kind of lays right into what you're talking about, Ivy. Even when you do transactions, I had a colleague of mine share with me how to reposition a stale listing. Okay, it's another RE/MAX owner, and they talked about using data to get a client to reposition how they had their listing on the market, and sold it with multiple offers after being on the market for over 120 days and having crickets. Okay. And she did a beautiful job at reviewing the data, using artificial intelligence, taking data from AI and converting it into a video. It was just an amazing experience, and got an $80,000 commission for her agent. So that's knowing the numbers, right? And also having some strong conviction. And just here's a dirty little secret: is after, you know, doing this and the client saying, "Hey, I would accept 2.5 million," you got 2.65 million. You know what the client did? Here's what the client asked for: a discount. See, after they said they would love to, you know, they'd take 2.5 and run, and the agent and the owner got them 2.65. Can you believe this? That, hey, Steve, can you believe that they came and said, "Can you give me a discount?" Can you believe that?
Yes. Sure.
I mean, you did your job too well, and they feel like it was too easy.
I mean, you can't fault them for asking, but you know, I mean, and you really, it's probably out of line to say you would have accepted 2.5 and I got you 2.65, but you just say, "You know what, Steve? I'm sorry, I can't give you a discount. Next question."
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, and you know, you can feel good about that. And at the end of the day, 98% of those people are going to really feel, and they're probably might even
I was
feel,
sitting here, you know, she's
hold on,
moving.
hold on.
She's listening to the mastermind.
They might even feel that it was a better experience because you didn't cut the commission. I'll repeat that. You know, they might even think that it was a better experience because you didn't cut the commission, because people are conditioned to pay for value, right? They don't want to pay for lack of value. So, in my opinion, you know, going back and saying, you know, hey, Jason, I got you 150 more than you want. That's pretty obnoxious to ask me. I just say, no, I can't do that. Right. Don't go into the details that don't need to be brought to the surface. Part of knowing your numbers is, you know, who always looks at absorption rate. For the record, only
I do
show of
that
hands
more
again.
than TAM, to be honest, Rob. When you ask me about TAM, I use more of absorption rates and turnover rates.
So in this particular price repositioning, right? Masterfully, it was done like this. Hey, Jason, you know, there were 14 sales, and there are, you know, I don't know, it was there was 20 months of inventory, whatever. So that would have been 26 homes. So there are 14 sales in the past year. There's 26 homes on. That equates to 20 months of inventory. That means, Jason, that the average property that's competing with yours is going to have to wait for 20 months. And I will have shown you that days on market is going to impair the ability to maximize the equity in your home. So I think consumers can understand that, right? That's not our fault. This is what the market's doing. But when it becomes our fault is if we don't educate them on what that means and what that means specifically to them, right? I mean, absorption rate means nothing, but if I can convert absorption rate to saying, Jason, there are 26 homes on the market in the $2.2 to $2.7 million range that are competing with yours, there were only 14 sales. That means that on average, your competitors and you are going to expect to sit on the market for 20 months. Would you be open to a strategy that will get you sold quicker for a higher price? Absolutely, right? So if you don't use that, especially in markets where inventory is building, it's very relatable to a seller. Okay. So Jennifer in the Villages, do you ever use that with your clients? Talk about like you reverse engineer absorption rate to share with them how many days on market their competition is going to be?
I'm sorry, I wasn't paying attention, and not because for a bad reason. I just got the clear to close a week and a half early on my property. So, yay.
So I'll repeat the question.
She doesn't need to use that version. She got clear to close. She's good.
So I'll repeat the question. The question was if you're working with a seller, okay, do you reverse engineer the absorption rate to share with them how many days or how long it will take them to sell their house? For example, the one price repositioning was in Southeast Florida, and the days on market for this couple 100,000 plus or minus $2.5 million home was 20 months on market, was the average based upon the sales and the existing inventory. So do you build that into the conversation with sellers? And maybe if you don't, you know, is that something that you'd like to maybe do in the future?
I have never done that. I mean, I've shown stats, but I've never positioned it in that form of a conversation, but I will, because that is something I think that is important to do in your business. You know, positioning with your sellers so that they know, so they have more educated information on what exactly it'll take to potentially sell their property, and that's definitely helpful information, I think. And thank you for that. I will start using that.
And I think, Jennifer, sometimes, and you don't need to, as a matter of fact, I don't want you to say on your own behalf, but can you see some of your peers in the industry kind of soft stepping the facts just so that they don't upset the seller because they want the listing?
Sure. I mean,
Right.
I think that a lot of people don't like confrontation. So when they have to have that hard conversation with their sellers, it's always like they step around it maybe a little bit to avoid the questioning. Well, then why would I list it right now? Or why should I list it at this moment if you're telling me that the statistics aren't in my favor?
So here's a concept that I want to lend to anybody that wants to use it. But I can tell you, Jennifer, a lot of times if I perceive the message as coming from you and being opinion, not fact, I might misdirect my frustration or disappointment at you. Is that possible?
Sure. I mean, people are always asking our professional opinion and they're looking to us for guidance. So when you have those conversations, you better be well prepared with your stats.
Okay, so if we were to go like this, and I'm going to do a little bit of a visual, I'm going to pretend I'm next to you and say, hey, Jennifer, the way that we evaluate property in the industry, there's a process for doing that. And based upon using that process, your house would appraise for $2.4 million. Okay. That's not my opinion. That's how the industry does it. The good news is that doesn't mean that's what it's going to sell for. So now I've distanced myself from the anger, right? Because there is a process to looking at it, right? We look at comps, we look at, right? It's not really your opinion, right? It's basically you're following a process. You're not saying that, oh, I like the terracotta roof, I'm going to say it's worth more. There's a process for determining what the value is. An appraiser follows the process, and most of the time appraisers are pretty close, right? Because they follow the process. By doing that, you distance yourself from the disappointment being misdirected to you. And then you focus on, if this is the way the industry would evaluate it, if we decided to work together, how would you like to launch your property? Okay. And we can reverse this for buyers as well. But I think I might have talked about this. I don't know if it was with somebody individually or collectively as the group. But, I feel like we're talking a lot about listings, but I want to reframe this even for buyers. So Jennifer, if I'm doing a buyer's agency agreement with you, right, which everybody loves to do those, I'd say one of the services that I provide to you, Jennifer, is if you see a house that you like, not only will I work on the comps to give you my opinion of, where we might want to come in, but would it be helpful, Jennifer, if I shared with you that if there are 2 or 3 properties that you like, if I shared with you the tendencies of the listing agent and how they price their properties? Because if one person sells them for 10% less, one person on average sells them for 2% above ask, would that be helpful for you?
Yes, I would say that would be definitely a good way for them to understand that when they're coming in at a price that they think they're going to lowball, so to speak, the home, because they don't go off of statistics. They're just going based upon what they think the market's doing and what it's going to do.
Yeah. But I mean, what percentage of agents do you think offer that or do that?
I do it all the time. I do what's called a quick CMA just to give us a general ideal. First of all, you don't want to offend the seller, if you're coming in at a lower amount, but then you need to have something to back that up as well. So I think doing a quick CMA just to get a general idea of what's sold, similar properties in the area before you present the offer to the seller, then you have at least something to back up your information on, and you're not just throwing out a number in the air. and you're controlling that buyer, because they want to come in all the time and say, well, I know the market's going to tank. This house has been sitting on the market for 90 days. I'm going to offer them less money. Okay, we can do that, but do you really want the house, or do we just want to continue to keep looking?
So you just struck another idea in my head, Jen, which is if you can really differentiate yourself in that process. If you've been in the business for 5 years or longer, you know that, a lot of times somebody is buying a house, like they know two other people that are buying a house. It's really very strange. Maybe it's just like they're paying attention, or maybe it's just that age group is buying. And if you can connect at that level where you really differentiate yourself and the buyer recognizes that you're not the run-of-the-mill typical agent, because I think consumers, and if you feel strongly against this, unmute yourself and let me have it. But I think consumers look at us and say, I want to buy a house in this price range, and basically we make the appointments and maybe give them some comps, but that's pretty much all they expect from us. I don't think they know what happens below the surface, right? It's like an iceberg. They see the top 10%, but they don't see the 90% that happens behind the scenes. If you disagree with that, let me have it. So there's nobody, either everybody's shy or they don't disagree. So
I think that what happens is when people start working with buyers, they let them control the whole narrative, and you are the one that's in control of the narrative, essentially, because they're looking for your expertise. And if you've been doing it, long enough, like, I've been in the business for like 10 years, and I sold quite a few homes, and I know the market in my area. So they're looking for you for that guidance again, and that expertise, and you have to pull out all the stops and show them and prove to them that you are the right agent for the job.
So when you say control the narrative, I think I know what you mean, but I want to clarify that. Controlling the narrative is much about knowing what questions to ask at the right times as saying, I'm the expert, I know what to do. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, you have to, you're not just there to open up the door for them, and they need to know that. You need to be the expert in the market. You need to know what the home's value is, and potentially when I go in a home, I'm not looking at just the home. I'm looking at all the things, because I go to all my inspections. So I'm looking at all the things that maybe an inspector would point out. So I'm kind of putting that in the back of my head, like, okay, this has an older roof, or there's some cracks, or, stuff is falling apart, or might come up in an inspection. So that plays into a part for the negotiation part when you're putting it in the offer. So I'm looking at all those things. I'm not just looking at the pretty stuff. I'm looking at like the potential issues that could come up during the procedure of going through the process of putting in the offer.
Here's a good question when you're working with a buyer, which you might want to all write this down. Hey, Jennifer, in buying a house, are you primarily focused on, if they say school and convenience, or how important is resale value? And putting in things like that, we're always looking after, but we're not conveying that to them, because I'm sure that many of us on this call have had somebody looking to buy someplace where you think it's a really bad investment, but maybe they want to have a bigger house in a less desirable neighborhood. Or have you had that happen, right? And you kind of have to reframe that to make sure that they're making the right choice for all the right reasons, not just the bedrooms and bathroom count, right?
When you're working with investors, especially, I have a couple investors I work with, and they're not so worried about those cosmetic things. So yes, I have to put on a different perspective when we're looking at investment properties. It's more about the location, the size of the house, and what they could get on their return in their investment. So yeah, you have to look at it as, okay, I understand that this is not like the best condition, but this is like the location you want. So then you have to kind of go through those comps in a different way also. So you know they're going to come in at the lowest offer they can because they need to make the most money. But you also need to consider, you know, what the seller's motivation is to sell.
So I'm just going to take another just informal survey and say, do you do many open houses, Jennifer?
A lot.
So if you meet 10 people that don't have an agent or don't have a buyer agency agreement, they give you valid contact info. What percentage of those people do you think will wind up working with you?
Well, so I just did an open house yesterday. I probably had 2 people come in, and it's not always necessarily that person that walks in the door. It's they have a friend. And it happens a lot in the villages. They're looking for a friend. They're trying to get their friend to move in the area because the village is kind of unique. So people take their time
So
looking.
if you have 10 opportunities, right, the 10 names, what percentage of those 10 people do you think will work with you?
2.
2.
Realistically.
Okay, 2. And of the 10,
if I'm lucky.
Okay, you have a 20% conversion rate.
Don't make it any worse. What percentage of those 10 people do you think are buying in the next 6 months?
1, maybe.
Well, no, not necessarily with you, but of the 10 people that go through, what percentage of them do you think are going to buy, you know, a FSBO?
Maybe half. I don't know. It just depends. I mean,
that sounds about right to me. And so of the 10, 2 work with you. Of the 2 that work with you, what percentage of those 2 actually go on to buy versus, you know, not buy? Like, is it 50%? Like, you know, half of them are buying, or is it higher because they're working with you?
So a lot of them come in, they already have an agent or they know someone. So I always say,
Okay, but I'm excluding it to just the ones that don't have an agent.
Okay. I would say the ones that are looking to seriously buy like now, I mean, a lot of them might have a house to sell, so they are motivated, but that maybe not this house, maybe another house, when the time is right. So I would say still, I would say maybe half still. I would say half.
Okay, so if you want to grow your business, and I'm running out of time. I'm gonna have to cut this short, but I'm going to next mastermind. I'm pre-announcing this is going to be about different ways and processes to help first-time home buyers be successful in this environment, and it's going to include things like grants that are available to buyers. It's going to include special loan programs. This is a not miss, and just have to get my screen up here because you're going to love this. This is probably one of the craziest things I've done in a long time. If you're so inclined and committed to growing your business, I'm going to run a good old-fashioned RE/MAX contest, and this is the contest. Oh, that's not it. This here is the contest. If you can do 10 buyer side transactions next year, increase your buyer sides by 8. Or if you're already a high performing agent, increase it by 4 transactions. Instead of a T2 to Arizona, you can get join your peers on a celebration 3-night, 4-day trip to Paris with airfare included. Now, there is a limit to 100 people that can be on it, that can register, and there is an enrollment fee, because if there's no fee, people aren't going to do anything. So this is the routine. I'm going to talk more about it next week. But it's going to be a very nice hotel, not a low end. It'll be at least a 4-star hotel, airfare, hanging out with really smart, successful winners. If you went to T2 in Arizona, raise your hand if you had a good time? Probably learned something, right? So if you want to grow your business, and just like Jennifer had mentioned, you can, you talk to 10 people, you're going to have 2 people that want to work with you, 1 that buys. There's your bit math, right? You have to do that probably 6 more times for most of us, maybe 8 more times if you're not doing a lot of buyers. And you can be having a fun trip to Paris. Okay, and I think it's going to be amazing because you'll be with other people of like minds. And we're going to be doing a social good, which is helping bring down the age of the average home buyer, right? Because that's really bothering me. It doesn't need to be. There's so many things out there that are available. There's so many resources that we're not leveraging. And it's not our fault because, we can't know everything. But next week, I'm going to bring you a lot of information that if you want to help buyers and bring down the age and make more money and feel good about the process, next Friday is going to be good. And I would also maybe just mention to a peer, if everybody just let one other person know that, hey, I know you've not seen you on these masterminds, but you should pop on next Friday. Because even if it's only one buyer that you can help, because there's access to grant money, or there's access to financing that you didn't know about. Next week is your time to learn about it, because we're going to put people in homes and we're going to do it on scale. So if we get 100 people that do 6 extra sales, that's 600 people that are in homes that wouldn't have been in homes. That's impact to me. If you want to be part of it, I'll see you next week, and we'll celebrate, put it on your calendar. We'll celebrate March 2027 in Paris on the top of the Eiffel Tower. Join me there.
All right. I'm coming.
Does
All
that
right.
include deals you have going on right now?
If they close in 2026, it works.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
So I'm going to go over more in detail. It's very attainable, but it's not a slam dunk. It's like everybody has to up their game, because if you're doing a lot of business, you have to improve it. So it's a fair barometer, right? You can't coast. And you celebrate with me on the top of the Eiffel Tower in March of 2027. All right. I will see you all. Don't forget, next Friday, more details. We're gonna give you a lot of ammunition to help sellers.
Thanks, Rob.
Thanks,
All
Rob.
right.
Have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And everybody in Florida, I hope to see you at the holiday party tonight.
Thank you, Rob.
Bye bye.
Bye,
See you
guys.
later.